Well, hello and welcome back to GearHeadGeeks, where in this video we are going to go on ahead and rebuild a Mikuni carburetor off a 1969 Suzuki TS250, which is a very common carburetor for a lot of 250s of that era. The Mikuni carburetors basically are the same through the next 10, 12 years. So what we're going to do is completely tear it apart. We will clean it up. We will then make sure that all passageways are all clear and nice and working well. Then we're going to put a brand new rebuild kit in it. And from there, we will go on ahead and finish it up, make it look as good as we can, and have a completely rebuilt carburetor. So stay tuned and follow along. Okay, so what we have here is well, this is about a 50-year-old carburetor, or actually more than that, 55-year-old carburetor. It's off of our Suzuki TS250. So what we're going to do is we're going to rebuild this guy. So let's go through the steps of rebuilding it. First things first, let's pull the bowl off and see what we have inside. This thing's been, looks like somebody has tried to seal this up with some sort of goop. RTV or something, so this is going to be a mess. Okay, I'm going to go on ahead and try and tap off this bowl, which this may not be any fun here. We don't want to mess it up. It's been glued on, so I got to be careful here. The idea here is not to do, the idea here is to do no harm. You can see it's kind of starting to, there we go. It's starting. I think we can get it now. Got just enough in there. This thing isn't very sharp. It's just a kind of an old dull screwdriver. Oh yeah, this is not pretty. As you can see, we got some nasty stuff going on here. How's that for a nasty carburetor? Eek! That's and the floats on this thing are just wiped out. This thing is in rough shape. So anyway, I'm going to go dump some of the, let me just dump it out in here. Boy, that's something. The good part is there's some gasket left here, so we might be in luck. Okay, the floats sit on pins. And the bowl is been filled with RTV and all sorts of good stuff here. Yep, this carburetor needs a little TLC. Okay, so we got that anyway. Let me go dump this off of here. Okay, so now the next thing we want to do is we're going to take and try and get the main jet out. Now, if it doesn't come out, we may just leave it for now. And the reason for that is we if it doesn't want to come out, we're going to put this in the ultrasound. Oh, no, it's coming right out. No problem. Thing. Now the next thing you want to do is remove this so we can get the needle out of there. And the way to do that is you have to be very gentle. If you beat on these too hard, you can bend and break them. So we don't want to do that. Ow. Ouch. Ow. Anyway, so I've got a 2-ounce hammer. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to find the pin, and I'm just going to tap on this bad boy, oh so very gently. And the pin comes out. Okay. Now this, let's take our slide out. Our spring is kind of rusted up, and our slide, which is coming out okay, but the washer that holds it down is really rusted, so we need to do something about that. Our needle is not terrible. There's nothing wrong with this. A little bit of Scotch-Brite won't cure. The inside of this is just nasty. It just needs to be cleaned in the ultrasonic. We'll see how that goes. Okay, this tube, instead of just trying to break this off, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to heat it up a little bit. And hopefully that's enough to, oh yeah, it kind of loosened it right up. And now the tube comes off. Okay. We'll remove the idle screw. So in our needle and seat, this is an 8mm wrench. And I'm going to try and break this loose. And if it's too stubborn, nope, we got it. Okay, well now let's get the air screw out, and it's okay. Now the only thing left in here is a pilot jet, and that's where a lot of trouble can come in. Maybe we'll get lucky. I'm going to get a better screwdriver than that one. You always take the biggest screwdriver you can get in there to do this job, and the reason for that is holding on to this stuff can be really hard sometimes, and being able to catch the pilot get a sliver in my hand. Now let's try this one. Yep, it's coming loose. Oh, we got lucky here. And the pilot came out. A little bit on the green side, completely plugged up, but that's okay. We don't care about that. What we're going to be doing here is we're going to be putting this into the ultrasonic. Now there's a washer in here. There we go, and that comes out. And then we need to get this guy out. And the best way to do that is gently with this punch. We'll see if we can pry that out. And I'm just kind of going around in the circle here, and it's moving. Okay, and then here's our needle. Okay, to prepare the ultrasonic, I've got some ultrasonic cleaner solution, and this stuff works pretty good. It does leave aluminum in a pretty good condition. So we'll just throw some of this in here. My measuring is leaves a little bit to be desired, obviously. That's okay. Now we'll take and we'll put our stuff in the basket. Hopefully I haven't got too much water in here. We'll start with the carb. And the water is fairly warm at the moment. I'm going to fill this up with the water in there, and I'll just let that sit in the bottom. Okay, and we got this. We'll take the spring, we'll take our top, our little lever, and throw the screws in there, may as well. Oh, and we got 2 floats, and they will be floating around in there. That's all right. You know, they'll get the... Actually, what I probably will do here is take these floats and put them underneath the cap. No, that doesn't work. Yeah, it's working. And we'll let that... We'll put the top on it. And we're going to give this probably about 20 minutes. And that's going to wreak havoc with the camera. So anyway, we'll be back in 20 minutes and see how we did. So now that our parts are out of the ultrasonic, all the crud is basically gone. The brass parts are starting to clean up a little bit. They're not ready for prime time. I still have to scrape away at all this silicone stuff. It's coming off fairly easily. But we need to do some wire brushing on the inside. Again, more silicone needs to go away. We'll get all of that off of there. We got most of the outside crud on it. It looks like this is all in good shape. It just needs a good thorough cleaning. The color isn't too bad. The chemical I use is pretty good stuff. So the carburetor's fairly bright. We'll get that all cleaned up. I need to use some rust dissolver on some of these parts. It's just, I'd rather chemically take that off. I'll just spray some in there. Give that a few minutes. And the reason I want to do it that way is because I'd rather not do any, I want to do as little scrubbing on this as possible. And when I say, because a lot of this stuff is just heavily into the surface. Take that, put that there. That's not rusty, it's just ugly. So those are the only 2 parts that have rust on them. So we'll let that sit, and I'm going to go scrape away at all the rest of this stuff. So whatever your carburetor needs, just be gentle on it. A little Scotch-Brite, sometimes some steel wool is the answer. But everything that you do, just make sure you're very gentle with it. Don't force anything. This gasket still needs to be soaked. It also needs some wire brushing in here. And the way I'm going to accomplish that, let me move the camera out of the way a little bit here, and we'll get it pointing back in the right direction, is I have a Dremel here with a little wire brush on it. And let's just see what this does to our bowl. Well, a lot of stuff is coming out of there. So after about at least an hour and a half in the ultrasonic, we've got the carburetor body and bowl looking pretty good. There's some pitting on the inside, which is no big deal. It's not a problem. Little pitting in here, but they're pretty ugly. So what I'm going to do here is first, we need to make sure that all the passageways in this carburetor are clear. There's a couple ways to do that. You can spray brake cleaner down them and watch where it comes out. You can blow air through it. You can do whatever you need to do. It's really relatively fairly simple, but there are a few passageways that we need to deal with. First, we'll start with the bowl. Now, in the bowl, there's a vent, which is no big deal. It's actually an overflow. And this pipe right here, if the fuel gets too high, it'll come out the bottom. And that happens sometimes when fuel is sloshing around and doing other stuff. There is one other passageway inside the bowl. And this passageway is for the enrichener, which is the choke. And it gathers fuel, and there's a little hole. Let's see if I can point it out. I don't know if you can see it, but right here, where the end of that tip is, there's a hole. And that feeds this guy, and that's where it gets fuel for the enrichener, which goes up through this pipe right here, and it goes up through the pipe and goes in here into this passageway where a plunger chokes it off and stops it from doing the enrichening act. And then once it does open, there's a hole that goes through the side, what you can't really see in there, but it comes out the side and enriches it. This doesn't have a choke, it has a enrichener. So a choke would be something that seals off the end. This just gives it extra fuel. So we need to make sure all these passageways are clean. So we can take a little bit of brake cleaner, and I'm going to go over, move this direction, and we'll get back down to where we can see. And I think we'll just take a rag here. Excuse the mess. We'll just take a bit of a rag to soak this stuff up. And just make sure that our passageways are clean. Now what we can do here is you can take your brake cleaner. Brake cleaner works as good as carburetor cleaner in my book. So you just take this and you just spray it down the hole, and if you can see it come out, which we can, I don't know if you can see it, but it's coming out the bottom. That passageway is fine, okay? I'll do the same thing, going for the overflow. And it should come out the bottom here. And it does. So this is fairly good. We'll give this thing a bit of a scrub off. We're going to try and make this look a little bit better. So first things first, though, is we will take a little bit of air and just blow through these guys just to make sure all extra crud is out. Okay, and so we've got it fairly good. Well, now we got to do the same thing with the carburetor body. And let's see if I can get this hose to go away. All right. Now I had spent the better part of 45 minutes, and this was so completely plugged that I could not blow air through either way. I think I've got a little bit of that on video. I could not blow air through here, blow air through here. I finally had to just take a piece of stainless steel wire and just start working my way into that and just digging away at that stuff that was in there. And I worked on both sides. There's a hole going this way through there, and I shoved the wire down in there, and I could only move it in about a ½ an inch, and now it goes all the way through. It's all cleaned up and nice. It flows real nicely, so we can go ahead and test that. And what we should see, and hopefully you can see that, is when I put some brake cleaner in here, it should come out here. And there it goes. So it's all nice and easy, clean. Okay, this is the pilot. This is where the pilot jet goes right here. And I can see right through that, but we'll just put a little cleaner in there. It'll come out over here. Okay, we need to make sure that our choke plunger affair is clear. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this tube down into the middle of that. We should see some stuff coming out of the, and as you see, it comes out of our choke or enriching or choke, whatever you want to call it, comes out of that tube. So that's nice and clear. Now we have a couple more here. So this is where it gets air to mix with the air screw. When we have an air screw on a Mikuni carburetor, or any other carburetors, the air screw, if it's on the intake side, away from the engine, it's an air screw. If it's on the engine side, it's a fuel screw. Just a little, just an idea so you know what that is. So we're just going to blow some brake cleaner down this and see if we get anything coming out other places. And it's coming out here where it should be. And as I squirt in here, it is coming straight through into there. And then now here's our other for the air screw, and you saw it come shooting out of the air screw. So that is all clear. These two guys are clear. This guy here is part of the choke system. It needs to get some air flowing through it, and that's all good. So everything, all the passageways on this are clear. With that, we'll just blow out some of the crud. And like I said, I've been cleaning on this for a while, so the crud is basically gone. The gasket was glued on, and it's still got some mineral stuff on it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try and clean this up using something called aluminum brightener. And the aluminum brightener is will help it make it look a little bit better, maybe take away some of the staining, maybe take some of the staining out of here. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to use it on the inside, and basically it's relatively simple. You just take it over to the sink, spray that stuff in there, and you'll see it kind of foam up if it's doing something. And we'll get that kind of cleaned up, and then we'll take it and then put things kind of together, spray it on the outside. Aluminum brightener cannot stay on for like more than 30 to 45 seconds. Any more than that, it'll start to actually darken the aluminum. So you got to be real careful with that. This carburetor isn't really looking too bad after so many laps in the ultrasonic, but it can still use a little TLC. This thing was in really bad shape, as you saw. And we got the cap here, and it's got this rubber gasket in there, and you get a new one of those with the kit. So what we'll do is we're going to put this guy on, because we don't really need to clean the inside of that very much. We'll put this on. We'll put some aluminum brightener on it, and I'll let it sit for, well, hold on, let me show you. And this is what I'm going to use, some aluminum brightener on there. And actually I can just do that here. I'll just go on ahead and soak this in a little bit on the inside. Now I'm not too worried about this getting dark on the inside. I just want it to kind of get as much of the really nasty stuff out of there. And we'll do the inside of this guy. And what I think I'll do, it is not a bad idea, let's see if I can do this, take a little wire brush or something like that, just kind of brush it around, because this will help clean things inside, make things look a little bit better. Okay, so after all that cleaning, we got all the surfaces nice in our gasket area here. We've checked to make sure that all passages are clean, and we've got the body looking pretty darn good. It is now time to take a look at our carburetor parts kit. And I did, when I first got it, I did do a quick check to make sure that the gasket was there and it was the right gasket. So I've already cut off the top, but it's not, I didn't get carried away. I did not look at any of these other parts, but here's a nice new gasket. So we can put this here, and then we're going to take all the rest of these parts, we'll put it on our little blue mat, and we are going to check to see if they're the same. Now, one thing I did notice is that this guy had a, let me take a look here. This has got a 130 main jet in it, and this is incorrect. I went to the parts book and I looked, and Suzuki says it should be a 120, and there's another 117 for like high altitude. But we'll just use a 120 because this guy, we don't know where it's going to go. It may end up sea level, so we're going to use a 120 on it. So we know it needs that. So let's take a look and see what this came with. Yeah. All right. And this is a 120. So that's good. We got a 120. Now, what you want to do with any carburetor kit, it doesn't matter which one you get, make sure it's the right one. A lot of times there's some differences. So okay, now we'll look at our needle and seat, and there is a slight difference here. They look the same for the most part as far as the seat to the top, but as you can see, it's got about one more thread on it, but that probably won't make a difference. We've got a washer on here. They give you an extra one, it looks like. And so if you had to, you could use two, but it doesn't look like we're really going to need to. When you look at the threads down in here, it looks like there's plenty. So we'll get this guy started. And take a socket. And I'm going to snug it down to where it should be. And there is no gap in there whatsoever, so this is just fine. Okay, next. This is our needle jet. Now, this is fairly straightforward, but there is an air passage right in here that you need to make sure is clear. And I have already done that, but we'll do it again real quick. You just take some brake cleaner and throw it in there, and it should come out, and it does. So it's all cleaned out. And now, to put this guy in, you need to, the opening goes toward the engine, toward the actual intake. So you just kind of get your fingers in there, and it will only go in the one way. There's a slot in there. Now let me pull it back out so you can see the slot. Little slot, and there's a little pin right there. So all you got to do is you just take this guy, get it aimed in kind of the right direction, and let it drop in, and we can now push it in the rest of the way. And if you look, you can see the slots toward the front. It's seated all the way down. So the next thing you do is there's a little brass washer that goes in here, and that's important that you have that washer. And then you can take your main jet and screw it in. And that holds the needle jet in. Get it nice and snug, and we're good to go. Now, so let's continue on with the other stuff. So what else did we have in here? We have a new air screw. So let's check our old air screw and see if they look the same. And they do, and it looks great. There's a spring which comes with the kit. We put that in there, and now we can go on ahead and put in our air screw. This one here. All right, so the way you adjust this is you turn this all the way in until it just seats. Okay, you can feel it, and you kind of work it back and forth till it seats properly. So right now, as you can, it's right about there, and so it's basically straight up and down. And all you want to do is turn this back out 1/2, 1 whole, 1.5 turns. And that's a good starting point for almost every carburetor. For whatever reason, 1.5 turns seems to be the magic number. It's always a good place to start. So we got that all set up. That's nice. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to use the needle that came with the kit. And there's a little tiny clip. And it's a little guy. And whenever you're building or working on a carburetor and you don't know what it is, always use it in the middle notch. And the reason for that, that's where it always comes from the factory at. And this one there's 5, so there's 2 on top and 2 on the bottom. And you just push that guy on till you get it and it's in the middle position. Always start in the middle. Don't go, oh yeah, I need to be leaner, richer. No, start in the middle. Okay, and he ends up going right in there. Okay, and in this case, on top of that, we're not going to put the cable in right now, but we're going to this plate, which is got a little rusty in the process. I got all the rust off of it, just a little pitted, no big deal. This is what holds that needle down, and it's very important that it goes in there. So it goes in, and there's a little groove that the cable will go into, and it holds that needle down, and it holds it steady. We get a new spring with the kit. So we'll put this guy in here, push him back through here, put our little rubber guy back on, and we are good to go with that. So now we need to get our plunger, and it took a bit of cleaning to get this one looking nice. I think I might clean out a little bit more. And so after just a few minutes of cleaning with a little bit of aluminum brightener, it is definitely looking much better. It's not perfect, but again, what do you expect for 55 years old? So now we can put our enricher back together. There is a washer here that goes on here first, and then you put on, this is a spring device that holds the clip in place, so you put that on next. Then you can take your handle and get it all basically put together. We'll get our rubber washer pushed on there. Yep. Looking good. And then the next thing you do is you just take this and you put it in here and you start screwing it in. Now this is a 12 millimeter. This thing's in a little rough shape. This has been kind of beat up over time, but that's okay. We'll get this all put back into place. And then this guy, you need to get him turned in the right direction. And let me get this in there so he gets turned in the right direction. Everybody's in place. So now we start screwing this down a little bit. And we get make sure our little clip is underneath the little tab. And all that we do is we will go on ahead and screw this thing down. Okay, and we will use a 12 millimeter wrench. Should be one in here. That's a 12 millimeter wrench, and get this thing aimed pretty close to being perpendicular to the intake, nice and tight. And it's ready to go. Little exercising here. It's a little dry. It's all right. In good shape. So next, I went and I checked to see the size of the pilot, and you can't see it on this, but it's a 25, and it's supposed to have a 25. Just really hard to read. But anyway, it's a 25, so we're just going to take our pilot and we will go on ahead and screw it down in there. And we just snug it down. Remember, all our passages are clean, our jets are brand new, we're in good shape. Now, okay, so it's time to do the floats. First of all, we've got our main jet in, we've got our float needle and seat replaced, our pilot jet is in, our body is all cleaned up, everything is good. We've got our enricher all ready to go. So now it's time, the last thing we need to do is the floats. And these floats have got pins on them in the bowl, and there's a hole in the bottom of this float, and this is not a hollow float. This is a solid piece, which is great. These don't leak. You then just take that, and with the pin toward the bottom of the bowl, you put those in, and they just need to slide up and down. Now, the next thing is this guy. This guy, when we got it, was completely bent. One of these prongs was way bent down, and it was completely black with corrosion. So I've taken some aluminum brightener, my go-to, and cleaned it up a little bit, and boy, it left it real nice. So now the next thing you need to do is determine which way it goes. And if it's used, there's a little tiny indentation right here where that needle's been hitting. And so we know this goes toward the needle. If you don't know, there's a see where they fold this around, where they rolled it around, the open part right here, that always goes toward the needle. So you know that when it's all done, that you shouldn't be able to see that slot. So this guy just does nothing more. There's a pin right here, and we're going to take this guy, and we just take this and run it through. Now I've cleaned everything enough to where this pin goes in very nicely. Okay. Now, the float level on these is impossible to find unless you have the manual. The only thing I do have is some notes from when I was a Suzuki mechanic. And the note said that this float level is supposed to be 10 millimeters. So if you don't have a clue as to what it's supposed to be, the best thing you can do to start out, and this is not, it's just basically this way on all Mikuni carburetors, and is if you look, this level right here, just make sure that it's exactly parallel to the bowl, and that'll get you close. Doesn't mean it's going to be perfect, but you need to be fairly close. In this case, we need 10 millimeters. So I'm going to go on ahead and dial in 10 millimeters, or as close as I can to it. It's a little tough to get it just perfect because it's so... Well, 10.01, that's about as close as I'm going to get. And all that you want to do is, see if you can do this. You can see it. You put it on that edge, and then you just see if it's just touching our float. And it is exactly there. And you do it on both sides because they can be bent. And it is as close to being perfect as I can get it. That's fine. I mean, if you're within a millimeter, you're fine anyway. But, so this is ready to go. Now, the next thing we need to do is we do have a nice new gasket, which is nice to have. If you don't have a new gasket, do the best you can to save your old one. You know, sometimes a tiny bit of sealant. Somebody had taken and put silicone seal around everything. We have removed all traces of that. It is completely gone. There is nothing of that left. And this guy fits right in there. And so now we have our floats in the bowl. Everything is all cleaned up. We know all our passages are done. All our surfaces are as clean as we can possibly get them. And you just take this guy and you just push it together. And you get the gasket in place. It'll go in there. You can do it. Now, let me do that again. Need to push the gasket in. Yep, all the way around. Make sure it stays in. They can be a little fiddly sometimes. Even these kits are very, very old. And our gasket is in place all the way around. Now we can go on ahead, and this part of the bowl, it only fits on the one way. You can't mess it up. And the bowl goes on. And I have taken and cleaned all the silicone off the screws. And when you tighten this stuff down, be gentle. Take your time. Take the screws, and the first one you just barely snug. Go across from it. Barely snug. Now, before you do anything else, make sure that the gasket is in all the way around, and it is, and our bowl is completely seated. And now, on our last screw, now we can start tightening this down a little bit. So we're going to go a little bit more than snug. And then we'll go across from there. And we'll go here. Get this guy pushed down a little bit. Okay, and we'll do that one more time. And our bowl is on, our floats are in, everything is looking good. The last thing we have to do is get our slide in. Now the one thing that's going to end up happening on this is we're going to have to take this back apart when we put the cable in, but that's okay. For the sake of this, all that we need to do is put our slide in. And now the slide can only go into one way. There's a pin inside here that goes into this groove. But always, there's if you look at the side slide, you can see this is called the cutaway. And the cutaway always goes away from the engine or to the back of the carb. So you take that cutaway, we aim it at the back, and we can then slide this down. And once you get that groove, it goes right in, and this guy just kind of fell right in. There's a spring that goes on top of that, and on our carburetor cap we got a brand new gasket that goes inside here. We've cleaned up our carburetor cap fairly well. Nice new gasket. And we can take this, screw it on, and we're almost done. One more thing. We can check our slide. You gotta get your fingers in there, and you can see I'm pushing it up and down with my finger, and it's relatively smooth and simple. Now one last thing is our idle adjust screw, and here it is right here. And we don't get a new one in the kit, but there is a spring that goes along with that, and that just keeps it from backing out and doing whatever. So now there's only one place for it to go in. Now this one, it looks like it has two, but this one doesn't have any threads, and this one does have threads. So you screw this in until you see the slide move a little bit, and it just started to move, and just give it about another half a turn, 3/4 of a turn, and it might idle there, but you know that at least you're pushing on this and moving that slide up and down, and all that does is adjust the idle by moving that slide up and down. That's all it does. And to that, this carburetor is completely done. It doesn't look bad. I mean, considering it's 56 years old, 57 years old, whatever, it looks great. It's in good shape. We know that everything works inside. We know our floats are all good. We know it's clean inside. We know all our passageways are done. We got our new pieces inside that they all match. Everything is looking really, really good. Now, if we have troubles with it running, and especially in the mid-range where anywhere from like a 1/4 throttle on up, and then it's okay when we get to 3/4, that 1/4 to 3/4 is the needle. If that needle needs to be changed, we can always go back to our original needle, which is a possibility. But we do have it, and it's very easy to change. You don't have to even pull the carburetor off. You just pull this off, and it's just like changing a cable. You just pull the spring out, you pull that little clip out, you can change it. You can also change the height of that needle. You can bring it up and down. So if it seems too rich on, in mid-range, you can drop it. If it's too lean, you can always bring it up. So our carburetor is done and ready to be put back on. Well, that ends our video on rebuilding Mikuni carburetor. It's a very simple carburetor. It's easy to work on. Again, when they get old, things can be delicate. You can always clean the parts. We use a rebuild kit, but if you need to, you can clean the parts. It is not that hard. If you need to get a jet cleared out, you can use a little tiny piece of wire. Never use any kind of a welder's file. But if you need to clean out a jet, you can use a little piece of strand of wire and clean out the jet. We used a rebuild kit. All we did, we made sure that everything was the right size, and it was. So we threw the kit in there, rebuilt the carburetor. It is not that hard. It is a very, very do-it-yourself project. A little carb cleaner. I like to use aluminum brightener because that works well on a lot of things. It works well on zinc. It works well on aluminum. It's just, the secret is not leaving it on too long. You leave it on too long, it's kind of an acidy stuff and it'll turn things black. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, and we'll see you next time here on Gearhead Geeks.